Welcome to the Aging Well Firefighter, the podcast for first responders, our families, and the communities we serve. Whether you're on the front lines or standing with us, I'm here to help you fight wisely and age bravely. Too strong to fall? Think again. That's the title of my latest article, and it's also a lesson that I had to learn the hard way. I was training for an ultramarathon, logging high mileage weeks, when one hot day, I stood up too fast from my easy chair and boom, I was on the floor. The only thing I really hurt was my pride, but it was a wake-up call. We like to think that falls are something that happen to the frail, the elderly, the unsteady, but the truth is, they happen to firefighters, athletes, parents, professionals. They happen to people like us. That's why I wanted to bring in someone who sees this reality every day. Dr. Michael Grahl is an emergency physician and an EMS medical director who's on the front lines of treating falls in people of all ages. He joined me remotely for this conversation, where we talk about why younger and middle-aged adults fall and the hidden factors that often surprise people, and the lessons that we can all take away to keep ourselves and our families safer. So if you're ready, let's dive in. Dr. Grahl, I know you wear a lot of hats. You're an emergency physician, you're an EMS medical director, and I'm sure that you're someone who's seen more than your share of falls come through the ER. Now, for listeners who haven't had a chance to meet you yet, can you introduce yourself and share just a little bit about the work that you do at SSM Health St. Agnes Hospital?
Sure. So, like you said, I'm a board-certified emergency medicine physician, and I'm an EMS medical director, and I oversee a majority of the departments in Fond du Lac County and one or two in Dodge County as well. I'm a part of a ER physicians group called Madison Emergency Physicians, and we are one of the largest EMS programs in the state for utilization of our protocols that are used, some of the most used in the state of Wisconsin. 50% of my time is clinical in the emergency department, just being a regular ER doctor, seeing anything that walks in, whether it's elderly falls from the nursing home or chest pain, etc. And then the other thing that I do is I'm responsible for the education, training, and quality assurance of the EMS services. As we all know, EMS services are not able to operate unless there's an overseeing physician under their license. And I try to take that a step further and not just be the rubber stamp guy that says, yes, you can practice, and try to push the envelope and make sure that our training and our education's top-notch. And I try to get all of my services to operate to the level of that their license is allowed within the state's scope. I pride myself in saying that I am on an ambulance responding to calls. I try to do it at least once a week for a full shift. I'm also the medical director for two separate tactical SWAT teams and TEMS units as well in Fond du Lac County. And that's something that you don't hear a lot about ER doctors about, but something that I think we can add to the team when there's a bad trauma. I am able to do things that a lot of our paramedics don't have the scope or ability to do, including those that are on an aircraft.
Yeah, and I for one, really appreciate the involvement that you have with the department I'm on in North Fond du Lac. I love seeing you when you come to visit us on shift.
It's definitely always a burnout cure for me when I actually get to go to the station and get to see all the members and actually get to run calls with you guys. And I like to think that I don't get in the way. I try to not say anything. 1% of the time is there ever actually need for a physician on the scene. Otherwise, I'm just the guy grabbing the cot or holding the monitor for you.
Now, Dr. Grahl, talking about falls, many people think of falls as primarily a problem for the elderly, but from your perspective in the ER, how often do you see younger or middle-aged patients come in because of a fall?
Probably not as often as the elderly, but it is still something that I would see probably at least once a shift. Usually in the younger population, I'm seeing those that are more from either making poor decisions related to liquid encouragement, i.e. alcohol or substance abuse, Otherwise, it's the middle-aged adults that are trying to do the weekend warrior type of thing where, you only have Saturday, Sunday to try to get things done. And so you're trying to rush and not thinking and trying to get your yard work done. Or something that's silly for me, I was spraying weeds in a culvert and I hit some loose gravel and I went down and hurt my ankle. Thankfully, didn't break it. It was spraying horribly, but I'm laying in the grass and I see a car coming through the subdivision. And I didn't want them to stop and ask if I was okay. So I pretended that I was weeding in my flower bed until they drove past, and then I went back to, oh, ouch, ouch. There's pride there. Definitely pride.
Yeah, there's a little bit of pride there. I've had a fall myself, and that's something I wanted to ask you about. What are some of the most common situations where young or middle-aged adults end up falling? Are there certain patterns that you notice?
I will see most often it's late at night. Because out at the bar scene, and I've seen some people absolutely destroy their ankle with horrible fractures related to just stepping off the curb and rolling their ankle, and it's a full-on open fracture that needs to get sent to a trauma center to get fixated, and they'll never walk again just from something as silly as that, or they're running from the police and something, they trip and fall, or otherwise, yeah, I would say it's more like recreation. So dirt bikes, ATVs, swimming, jumping off high ledges, and maybe not realizing how high they're up and causing injuries that way. It's not always like how our elderly patients that I like to joke and say, oh no, the gravity machine got turned up today. So that's why we're getting so many of our elderly in for falls. It's more so of not knowing your limitations or having false bravado or confidence or just not paying attention, and then tragedy strikes.
Okay. It sounds like in the ER, you're not just concerning yourself with treating the injury, but you're also looking at uncovering the causes behind a lot of these falls. What are some of those hidden medical or lifestyle factors that often surprise people when it comes to falling?
Well, like you were saying, trying to uncover the cause for the fall is important, because it's not every time that someone says, oh, yes, I tripped on a rug or I tripped over the dog and down I went. And I'll see it regardless of age, as people may not know why they actually fell and they kind of make up a story. And you got to make sure, okay, you tripped over the dog, but you fell down a flight of stairs? That doesn't make sense. Or the injuries are not consistent with the story they're telling me. And so those things, we use to help, figure out if there's concerns for domestic abuse or concerns for illicit drug use, or there's even just people that have symptoms prior to that they realize that they fell, but the reason they fell is because they passed out. Well, why did they pass out? And that could be anything from the simple dehydration because you're on a diet and trying to cut and lose weight, or you just got back from the gym, or you're a new onset diabetic and your blood sugar went low and you had no idea and you passed out. Or you could have a deadly cardiac arrhythmia and you could have dropped, nearly died from an issue with your heart. So it's really important for us when we ask people, how and why did you fall, to see, it's not just I wasn't paying attention. We have to make sure that there's not a medical underlying cause.
Yeah, yeah. So you kind of alluded to the fact that a lot of people maybe try to hide or cover up the reasons behind a fall. I shared in the article related to this podcast that when I had an unexpected call, the only thing, fortunately, that I really hurt was my pride. But do you see in your patients that kind of sense of shock or embarrassment where they hurt their pride and think maybe this shouldn't have happened to me, and how could this possibly have happened?
I do, yes. It's the shock, I think, is sometimes related to how the injury actually happened. So people are shocked to realize how badly they broke their ankle based on, they just stepped off a curb, and how the heck did I break my ankle in 3 places and now I need surgery and I just missed a curve or I fell down. It's hard because a lot of times too, it's people that don't want to believe you, or, they get angry and they try to take it out on you when they're really just angry at themselves for, that lapse in judgment or just that one mistake that we're all guilty of.
Sure. Yeah. If you could give maybe a couple pieces of advice to younger or active adults to help them reduce their risk of falling, what would you say?
Know your limitations.
Hmm.
Realize if you are having symptoms, whether you're noticing that you're lightheaded or dizzy or your heart, you're having palpitations or something like that, that's your body telling you that something is wrong and maybe it's not time for you to push it. Realize that nutrition is extremely important, as is watching your hydration. I'm guilty. I work a 10 to 12-hour shift in the ER, and I'm lucky if I get to use the bathroom once. And a lot of times I don't even have to use the bathroom because I haven't drank any water all day. So you can imagine I have a headache and I don't feel great when I'm driving home from work. We all realize that, we're all so busy in our personal and professional lives, and we don't stop to realize that, we aren't operating at our top peak performance, and that largely comes down to our nutrition as well as our hydration. I also recommend knowing your limitations when it comes to alcohol, because again, in the young population, in my opinion, it's the most common cause for people coming in with these injuries, particularly late at night, is you had 1 or 2 or 12 too many beers and then made a bad decision, and now your life is never going to be the same from it.
Yeah, yeah. How about for older adults? Do you have any advice for older adults as far as reducing their risk of falling?
Something so simple as wearing well-fitting shoes when you're in the house. If you have an assisted device, whether it's a cane or a walker, make sure you're actually using that. Even if it's, short distances to and from, people fall constantly. And one of the most common places that we find people down is either in the kitchen or, as Roy, with EMS, it's wedged between the toilet and the bathtub.
Right, yeah.
And it doesn't matter how old you are. That's pretty darn hard to get up from that little cramped little spot there. So making sure that, if you need an assisted device to be using it, again, realize your limitations, that you may not have the strength that you're used to when you're in your 20s. Yeah. Now, up in Fond du Lac County, if I can put a little plug in, we have something called the Falls Coalition, and it's a service that a lot of my EMS services that when we respond to a fall in the home, generally we try to target more towards the elderly, that we can actually do a referral to something called ARDC, or the Aging and Disability Resource Center. They can come out for free and do like a falls assessment and determine, is it you need help with footwear, you need help with putting a bar next to the toilet or in the shower or things like that. And it's completely free to the individual. I've noticed, though, that a lot of people decline that. And I'm realizing it's because they think they're going to get pulled out of their home. And the goal for this is not to pull people out of their home. Obviously, those who can't take care of themselves, it's a danger, but there's also still laws in place in the state of Wisconsin for patient autonomy and things like that. So it's not they're going to sneak in and take you out of your house. It's really just, we're trying to keep you safe, because I've seen so many people, young and old, they had the one fall and they took the header down the stairs and they have a massive brain injury and brain bleed or femur fracture where, if you're elderly and you break your hip over the age of 65, you have a much higher morbidity mortality risk, meaning like you're more likely to die or pass away within the next 6 months with a hip fracture after the age of 65. And that's not you don't need a lot of force to break your hip. Just a slip and fall onto your hip is enough to cause that broken hip. So it can be life altering from this.
Yeah. So from your perspective, Dr. Grahl, should we be talking more about falls in younger populations instead of just focusing on older populations? And if so, why?
Well, if we start young, it'll hopefully get it beaten into their heads more. So when they do become older and more at risk for a fall, they might remember some things. So it's always good about, education younger, because you're more likely to catch more people.
Yeah.
But I think focusing on the younger population is important too, because again, these are the high risk activities that we do that is way more likely to cause you to have this life-altering injury. And I think people need to realize that getting behind the wheel when you've had too much to drink, or you're under the influence of a drug, or you're out on the boat having a few beers and doing tubing, and you decide you're going to dive in off the boat and you don't realize it's 3 feet in there, and now you have a high C-spine fracture and you're paralyzed from your shoulders down. I bring that up because I've had a patient very recently where that happened to, and they were very young. It's important. People think they're invincible when they're younger, and I think it's important that people realize that they're not invincible.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Dr. Grahl, I want to thank you so much for your time today. I know that Your work in the ER and your work as a EMS medical director keeps you very busy. So the time that you spend here today is really valuable. And I appreciate you sharing with us. If there was one takeaway that you wanted to send with our listeners, what would it be?
I've said it before, but I think it's important to say again, know your limitations. It doesn't matter how young or old you are. We are not invincible. If you're having symptoms, whether you're lightheaded or you're dehydrated or having any kind of potential medical situation, you need to take time and pause and think before you do something, because that split second can be the difference between you making it home tonight versus ending up in a trauma center intubated in the ICU and not being the same person you were before.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Dr. Grahl, and I look forward to seeing you next time you're with us on shift in North Fond du Lac.
Sounds great. Thanks a lot, Roy.
Yeah, thank you. That was Dr. Michael Grahl, and I hope you caught the theme that ran through everything he said. None of us are invincible. Whether it's alcohol, distraction, dehydration, or just plain pride, the strongest among us can go down in an instant. In my article, Too Strong to Fall, Think Again, I shared my own story of a fall that bruised my ego more than my body. Dr. Grahl's stories from the ER remind us that sometimes the consequences are far worse. Broken bones, lost independence, even life-altering injuries. And you know what struck me the most about this conversation? Growing up with pop culture shows like ER or Scrubs, it's easy to see emergency physicians as larger than life, like superheroes. But hearing Dr. Grahl talk about his own fall in the yard, or grabbing the cot and running calls with EMS crews, or just forgetting to drink water himself, reminded me that ER docs are human too. They face the same risks, the same pride, and the same lessons as the rest of us. So here are the takeaways. First, respect your body's cues. Dizziness, fatigue, dehydration, those are your dashboard's warning lights, not minor inconveniences. Next, know your limitations. Don't let pride trick you into thinking that you're untouchable. And lastly, remember, falls aren't just for the frail. They happen to people like us. If this conversation made you rethink falls, share this episode with someone you care about. You might just prevent the fall they never saw coming. And if you haven't yet, check out the full article on the Aging Well Firefighter blog for more stories, science, and practical tips. Now, here's a teaser for what's next. If you think the riskiest place to fall is a ladder or an icy sidewalk, think again. The most dangerous trip you'll ever take might just be the 10 steps from your bed to the bathroom at 2 a.m. That's what we'll explore in the next article and podcast in this series, The Midnight Fall. I want to thank you for joining me this week. If you have your own story you'd like to share, please reach out. I'd love to hear it. And with your permission, I'd love to share it on this podcast or have you come on to talk about it yourself. Until next time, listeners, as always, fight wisely, age bravely,